All right, let's dive right into this explainer because what we're looking at today is going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about money. By every traditional law of economics, this country just shouldn't exist right now. It should be a smoking financial crater. But it isn't. It's alive, it's wealthy, and it is sitting on a mathematical impossibility. Welcome to Japan's Great Debt Illusion.
Section 1. The 219% Debt Mystery.
So, here's the big question. We are always taught that massive debt destroys nations, right? So why on earth hasn't Japan gone bankrupt? Every expert predicted it. Every model demanded it. And yet, year after year, Tokyo's financial district just keeps on humming. The whole world is basically waiting for an explosion that never actually comes. To really grasp the scale of this ticking bomb, just look at this monstrous figure, 219.1%. That is Japan's national debt compared to its entire economy. I mean, it's a number so ridiculously large it almost feels fake. On paper, that is an absolute economic death sentence.
Do you remember the Greek debt crisis? The one that almost tore the Eurozone apart and caused literal riots in the streets? Well, Greece completely collapsed at a debt ratio of about 165%. They went totally bankrupt. Yet, Japan is towering over them at 219%. Seriously, compared to Japan, the Greek collapse was absolute amateur hour.
Section 2. The Domestic Savior Illusion.
So how exactly did they survive this long? Well, for decades, the financial elite would just wave away the panic with this one kind of smug little phrase. Oh, they just borrow from their own grandmas. The illusion was that Japan's bottomless domestic savings would just permanently protect them. They weren't borrowing from ruthless foreign investors, right? They were just borrowing from their own highly disciplined citizens.
But it was really more than just saving money in a bank account. It was this stubborn, relentless refusal to invest overseas. Japanese citizens just parked all their wealth right at home. They were effectively force-feeding cash into the government's massive borrowing machine. The government needed cash, and domestic banks just kept buying up the debt.
And you can see the result right here. Back in the early 2000s, over 90% of this colossal debt was held domestically. Foreigners held almost nothing. So Japan's survival relied entirely on this completely closed, incestuous money loop. It didn't matter what the outside world thought because they literally weren't invited to the party. But as we know, loops break.
Section 3. The Unexpected Safe Haven.
Now here is the ultimate plot twist. That domestic bubble didn't pop from the inside. It got shattered by a violent, totally unexpected shift in global capital. The expectation was always that foreigners started buying Japanese debt because Japan was this booming economic miracle. But the reality? Foreigners only bought Japanese debt because Europe was absolutely melting down. Japan didn't suddenly become a great investment, it just became the least radioactive bunker during the 2008 financial apocalypse.
And then came the panic spike. Look at how short-term foreign holdings suddenly rocketed up to 17%. Let's be clear, this was not confident, optimistic investment. This was terrified foreign cash, frantically flooding into Japan. The world was terrified of losing its money in Western markets, so they basically shoved it into the one place that owed the most money on Earth.
The true story totally reveals itself when we split the data apart. Foreign demand for short-term debt exploded, but foreign demand for long-term debt? Completely flat, stuck under 8%. This divergence absolutely proves that foreigners were not investing in Japan's future. They didn't believe in Japan's long-term health at all. They were literally just hiding their cash there overnight. And honestly, it gets even more deeply unsettling. The data behind this massive cash inflow is incredibly opaque. Researchers literally can't even tell exactly who was panicking. We can't fully separate out the scared European bankers from, say, China's secretive monetary authorities quietly shifting their reserves. It was just a blind rush for the exits, and Japan happened to be the closest door.
Section 4. A ticking time bomb.
But here's the thing about hiding in a bunker. It only works until the storm passes. Now an inescapable mathematical trap is closing in. Think about it in phases. Phase 1. The population rapidly ages. Phase 2. Those older citizens start spending down their savings, which starves the domestic banks of cash. Phase 3. The global crisis ends and foreign capital flees Japan, looking for higher returns. And finally, Phase 4. That massive 219% debt crisis detonates.
This isn't theoretical either. This nightmare scenario is playing out right now. The two fragile pillars that have been holding up Japan's massive debt are crumbling to dust at the exact same time. The grandmas are eating through their savings, the panicked foreigners are packing up and leaving, and that leaves the domestic banks completely alone, holding the bag on the biggest pile of government debt in the developed world.
Economists studying all this data leave us with a really stark, irrefutable warning. Japan bought time, but the pressures to reduce the debt are increasing. That temporary safe haven miracle? It's dead. Gravity is finally coming for the Japanese economy, and the math can simply no longer be ignored.
Which leaves us staring at probably the most terrifying question in modern global finance. Can new political policies and frantic structural reforms actually defuse a 219% bomb before the grandmas finally run out of money? The clock is absolutely ticking, the safety nets are gone, and the whole world is about to find out exactly what happens when a financial miracle runs out of magic.